Hi, I'm Linda and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making banana chocolate chip muffins, and these muffins have been a favorite of my kids for years. When they were growing up, I had to make them all the time. In fact, I set limits on how many they could eat each day so that I didn't spend my whole life making muffins. I have adapted this recipe just slightly from one found in this Better Homes and Gardens new cookbook. Get a lot of my recipes from here. Absolutely love it. I think you can still get it from Costco. A few things I usually do. I always like to put my hair back because my hair is a little bit long and nobody ever wants to find a hair in their baking. I always also like to wear an apron because throughout the recipe you often need to wipe your hands, maybe after you crack an egg or many different times. So I definitely like to wear an apron also to protect my clothes. I always wash my hands thoroughly with soap, both before making a recipe, and if I have to scratch my nose or anything like that throughout the recipe, I do that as well. So we are going to go ahead and preheat our oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've already done that. That's gotten started. So I'm ready to go ahead and introduce you to some of the tools that we'll need today. This recipe requires 2 mixing bowls, a small one and a larger one. A masher for mashing bananas. Several different sizes of spoons, measuring spoons, 3 different sizes of measuring cups, half, 3/4, and 1 cup, a blender and beaters, mixer and beaters, sorry, spatula, wooden spoon, and I've got a silicone muffin tray here. Any muffin tray will do. I like to use paper cups because it means it's a lot easier for cleanup after. And because this is silicone, I actually have it on a sturdy baking sheet so that it doesn't bend when I put that in the oven. Later on, when I do the muffins, I also like to use a scoop, kind of like an ice cream scoop. Just makes it easier to put the batter into the muffin cups, but you can use a spoon for that if you don't have a scoop. My ingredients today, and by the way, whenever I do a recipe, I always put the directions in the description setting underneath the video. So that's where you can find my recipe all the time. Today for ingredients, we need all-purpose flour, white sugar, baking powder and baking soda, salt, shortening, eggs, bananas, milk, which I'm keeping in the fridge for now, and of course, chocolate chips. So I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. And so the first thing I'm going to do is take my smaller mixing bowl and I'm going to peel the bananas and mash them up and set them aside. The kind of bananas that you want to use for making banana bread, banana muffins are bananas that are past their prime. Maybe you don't like to eat them anymore because they're a little bit brown. Maybe you like ripe bananas, that's okay, but you don't want them so black that they're extremely mushy, but definitely a little bit of black or brown spots. Even several is the best because the muffins are so much more flavorful at that time. I have a knife here too, which will come in handy for a couple of different things. I'm going to go ahead and compost those. And I'll take my masher and I'm just going to mash these bananas until they're all mashed up together. and they're not like individual pieces anymore, but just one big thing of mashed bananas. Okay. That's all I'm really going to need my masher for, so I'm going to set that aside, set the bananas aside. That's what they look like. And we're going to start putting our dry ingredients into our large bowl. So the first thing is, this recipe calls for 1 3/4 of a cup of white flour. Now, the problem is that you only use part of the flour now and part of the flour later in the recipe. So make sure you check very carefully the instructions for this recipe. So right now, we're only going to add 1 cup of the flour. Next is 1/2 cup of sugar, and I'll be honest with you, when I was making these for my kids, I actually used less than 1/2 cup because, I mean, you're not making cake, right? And it does still taste very sweet, and they never complained. They didn't know, but they never complained. So I'm actually not gonna fill my 1/2 cup completely full. So you could maybe add 1/3 of a cup or 1/2 cup, completely up to you. Two teaspoons of baking powder. Now, because you're using powder and soda in this recipe, make sure you use the right amount for each ingredient. Baking powder makes the muffins rise, so you need more of it than the soda. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm going to use my finger to just level off the amount. And I like to sprinkle it around in the bowl so you haven't got big clumps of baking powder. Even though you're going to stir it, you still don't want big clumps of baking powder. For the baking soda, you're only using 1/2 teaspoon. And this recipe only calls for 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So what you can do is you can either take 1/4 teaspoon, measure it out. I never measure over a bowl in case extra spills. It's always easier to clean up extra from the counter, but not easy to dig out extra from a bowl. The other thing you can do is just take a salt shaker, shake it 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, depending on how much you need, and that's fine. So those are my dry ingredients. I'm going to use my wooden spoon and just mix them together. Doesn't really take a long time to do that. Next step is to add my mashed bananas, and I'm actually just going to give them one more quick mashing. I'm going to take my spatula and just scrape those right into my dry mixture. Next, we need 1/3 cup of shortening, and shortening has the measurements on the side of it. So you unwrap the shortening, you line up this ruler with the block of shortening and cut however much you need. So I'm going to do that now. To make it easier for blending, I usually cut my shortening into chunks when I'm putting it into the bowl. Just spreads it out a little bit. I've never been able to make the shortening package pretty again after I open it. Oh well. And let's see, now we do need to add 2 tablespoons of milk. 2 tablespoons is also halfway, half of a quarter of a cup. So if it's easier for you, you can take a quarter of a cup measuring cup and just fill that half full. So I'm gonna go get my milk and measure 2 tablespoons into the bowl. Again, I'm not measuring the milk over my bowl in case I pour too much by accident. Now the next step is to take your beaters and you're going to beat this. Start it off lower speed, then get it higher. You're going to beat it until it's blended, but not for too long. So I'll get started on that. I'm going to move these measuring spoons that I don't need again off to the side, clear myself some space. Now, you notice that that didn't take very long because it's not like cookies. You're not looking for the mixture to get all creamed together and well blended. You're just looking for the ingredients to be combined. So that's what I've done because I will be stirring it more. So it will get further blended. But with muffins, you don't want to over blend them. Now we need to add the eggs, 2 eggs. And we're going to add the rest of the flour now. So since this recipe called for 1 3/4 cups, I've already put 1 cup in, so I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup now. Now before I blend this together, I'm going to get my chocolate chiplets ready. And about 1/2 cup is perfect. So I'm going to start my beater on low again, blend this part way until the eggs are really broken up, starting to get blended. Then I'm going to add the chiplets and blend it the rest of the way. Before I finish adding my chiplets, I'm going to take my spatula and I'm going to go all around the bowl and scrape down any flour that's there and push it in so it can get mixed in as well. Remember, we're working with clean fingers, so we can use them at any time for any reason. Let's add our chocolate chip bits. And let's blend again on low until the chocolate chip bits are well mixed in. But again, don't blend for too long. Okay, so this is well mixed together, but I haven't blended it for too long. Now I'm going to just tidy up my area
For a minute, and then I'm going to get my scoop and start scooping this mixture into the muffin cups. You fill the muffin cups about 2/3 full each.
Okay, so I've tidied up my area. The only things that I've kept out are my, obviously, muffin cups, my mixture spatula, which you'll need in a little while. I've gotten out my scoop, and I've left out some chippets because sometimes you get to the bottom and your last muffin or two doesn't have any chippets, so I add a couple extra. So I have 12 full muffin cups here and a little bit left over. So I'm actually going to go grab another little set of muffin cups, fill that one, and that'll give me 13 muffins. Okay, so I have my extra muffin tray. I'm going to use my spatula for this. And there were enough chippets in this last little bit, so I didn't need to add any extra from the bag. I've got a little bit extra mixture, so I'll just top up one or two of these, make them a little bit bigger. Okay, your muffins are all ready to go in the oven, and these are going to cook for, let's see what it says here. 17 to 20 minutes. So let's check them at 17 minutes. Your oven might be different. You might need to check them earlier. Anything that you're cooking with baking powder, you don't want to check until almost the end because sometimes they don't rise properly. You also want to make sure your oven is fully preheated before you put them in. So I'm going to put mine in now, and we'll check back in about 17 minutes and see how they are. Okay, my timer has just gone, and I'm going to check on my muffins. They look okay, but you really need to check them out with a toothpick. So I'm going to put a toothpick in the center. If it comes out clean or just with chocolate on it, then you know that your muffins are done, and mine has come out clean or just with a little bit of chocolate. So these muffins are ready to come out of the oven. After about 5 or 7 minutes, I take these muffins and I turn them sideways so that they can start to cool a little bit, and they'll be ready for eating in about 10 or 15 minutes, whenever the chocolate is cool enough for it not to burn someone's mouth. So I guarantee you these will be popular. They're very delicious, not too difficult to make, so I hope you enjoy them. If you're enjoying my baking recipes, please subscribe to my channel, and there's more to come. Thank you very much.